Bruce Heiman, San Francisco State University here, Department of International Business. This is a briefing for my students in International Business 590 Sections 3 and 4, International Business Environment Analysis. I am offering today the first in a series of briefings for the reader for IBUS 590, and I am going to discuss the paper Towards a Generic Model of Design Thinking, Historical Mini Case-Based Arguments. I've written this paper with Bill Burnett of Stanford University, and it is not currently under review by the European Journal of Innovation Management, as it says on the draft. In fact, it has been rejected by them, and we're rewriting it, so you get to see this thing kind of a little bit raw, as are many of the offerings in the reader. This is a real slice into the mind of the academic. So, how do I like to read these papers? The first thing I want to discuss is what do I do when I come across a brand new academic paper that I haven't looked at before and that I'd really like to understand, but I don't have a ton of time because I've got other pressures. So first thing I like to do is, if there's anything like an abstract, and in this case there's quite a detailed one that talks about the purpose, the method, the findings, the research implications, and the practical implications, and then finally the originality and value. So certainly I would start in this case by reading this whole page here, which is page 2 of the paper, and trying to digest what that means. Also, looking at the keywords can't help, and the classification is also interesting but not that useful. Then I would second, after reading that, I would read through the introduction, which is really nothing dramatically insightful. In fact, the introduction is just page 3 and the top of page 4, and the introduction kind of justifies why managers should be interested in design thinking. And so we try to establish a framework, and then the last paragraph of the intro talks about how the paper proceeds, and that gives you the structure of the paper. So we talk about existing concepts of design thinking, summarize the scholarly work in this area, and there isn't very much, offer an original definition of design thinking using examples, multiple dimensions comprising design thinking, and we try to offer a preliminary model showing how these elements interact, and this model is proposed by us as a reasonable candidate for a generic model of design thinking. That is, other organizations, schools, firms, individuals that employ a model of design thinking are doing, so we claim, essentially a subset of this model, some kind of variation on our generic model. Now, after reading the abstract and the introduction, I would do the unintuitive thing of jumping to the end of the paper. Okay, there's two things I want to see at the end of the paper. I want to see if there's any pretty pictures and tables, which there are, and we'll get to that in a minute. That's figure 1, which is the actual framework. And then also, and more importantly, I want to read the conclusion. I want to read that right after I've read the introduction, because the conclusion talks a lot about, if it's a good conclusion, what your contribution is,